take out your passport, hold it in your hand. A small booklet with a photograph and a few pages. Nothing special, at first glance. But this little booklet decides whether you can leave your country, whether you can return home, whether you even exist in the eyes of the state. People cross deserts and oceans for this document. They lose years of their lives in queues and consulates. They pay thousands of dollars to obtain the passport of another country. And very few people stop to wonder, where did this come from? Who decided that every person on the planet must carry a document proving their identity? And why didn't this exist just 100 years ago? Let's find out. Let's start with a fact that surprises most people. As recently as 1900, the majority of people on Earth could travel the world with no documents whatsoever. No passports, no visas, no border controls as we understand them. Want to move from France to Argentina? Board a ship and sail from Russia to America? Go ahead. Millions of Europeans did exactly this in the 19th century. They simply got on a steamship and sailed toward a new world. Nobody asked for documents. Nobody verified your identity. This doesn't mean documents didn't exist at all. They did, but they served a completely different purpose. Medieval rulers issued travelers with letters requesting that other rulers allow the bearer to pass and offer assistance. These were closer to letters of recommendation than identity documents. The very word passport comes from the French passer la porte, to pass through the gate. In medieval cities, the gates were locked at night, and strangers were not admitted without permission. A document gave you the right to enter the city. It didn't confirm who you were. It simply granted permission to pass through. Here it's important to understand one crucial thing. The first passport-like documents did not appear to protect citizens. They appeared to control them. One of the earliest examples comes from 17th century France. King Louis XIV introduced a system of internal documents for peasants. The logic was simple and brutal. Peasants were supposed to work the land of their feudal lord. If a peasant left for the city, the lord lost his labor and the king lost his taxes. So a document was needed that permitted or prohibited movement. Without a document, a peasant could not legally move from the village to the city. They could be stopped on the road, arrested, and returned. From the very beginning, the passport was an instrument not of freedom, but of its absence. In Russia, the system was even harsher. Under Peter the Great, passage letters were introduced. Without them, a peasant had no right to leave their district. Under Catherine the Great, the system tightened further. A serf was literally bound to the land by documentation. Internal passports existed in Russia until 1997. The Soviet Propiska system was a direct descendant of this apparatus of control. Interestingly, the French Revolution of 1789 briefly abolished the passport system. The revolutionaries declared freedom of movement a sacred right of man. Documents were instruments of tyranny, away with them. But within a few years, the revolutionary government brought documents back and made them stricter than before. Because in conditions of war and chaos, the state needed to know who was where. Spies, émigrés, counter-revolutionaries, all of them were moving through the country. Freedom of movement turned out to be a beautiful idea that was very quickly sacrificed in the name of security. Napoleon went further and created an elaborate system of documents and controls that spread across all of conquered Europe. The French administrative machine, with its love of papers, stamps, and registers, left its mark on every country Napoleon conquered or influenced. Nevertheless, throughout the 19th century, most international borders remained effectively open. This was especially true of sea routes. Everything changed with the First World War, and it changed within a matter of weeks. In August 1914, as Europe entered the war, all countries almost simultaneously closed their borders and introduced strict passport controls. The military logic was clear. You need to know who is entering the country. Among refugees and travelers, there might be spies and enemies. What was conceived as a temporary wartime measure remained forever. In 1920, the newly created League of Nations held the first international passport conference in Paris. Delegates from different countries gathered to standardize documents. Until then, passports had looked any way imaginable. Enormous sheets of paper, small booklets, simple letters. A common format was needed. It was then that the standard we know today was adopted. A small booklet of a specific size containing a photograph of its holder. The photograph in a passport is also a relatively recent invention. Before the early 20th century, passports contained a written physical description. Hair dark, nose medium, no distinguishing features. Imagine a border guard checking your appearance against such a description. Here is something most people don't fully appreciate. Passports are not equal. There exists what is called the Passport Index, a ranking of countries by how many nations their citizens can visit without a visa. And the difference is enormous. A citizen of Japan or Singapore can enter nearly 195 countries without a visa. Simply arrive, and that's it. A citizen of Afghanistan or Syria can enter 28 to 30 countries. The same world, the same planet, but completely different access to it, depending on which country you happen to be born in. You don't choose where you are born, but your place of birth determines which passport you receive, and your passport determines which world is open to you. This is one of the most unjust lotteries in the history of humanity. This is precisely why the market for golden passports emerged. A number of countries, Malta, Cyprus, various Caribbean islands, offer citizenship in exchange for investment. Pay several $100,000, receive a passport and access to the world. Wealthy people literally purchase a different life through a document. And now the hardest part of this story. There are people in the world without citizenship. They are called stateless persons. According to the United Nations, there are approximately 10 million of them. They are citizens of no country. They have no passport, no documents. They literally do not exist in the eyes of any state system. Without documents, it is impossible to open a bank account, receive medical care, take official employment, purchase property, or register the birth of a child. A stateless person finds themselves in a legal void, a living human being who officially does not exist. The most famous example is Mehran Karimi Nasseri, an Iranian man who in 1988 became stranded in Paris's Charles de Gaulle airport without documents. No country would admit him. He lived in the airport for 18 years, until 2006. His story inspired Steven Spielberg's film The Terminal, starring Tom Hanks. 18 years in an airport, because of a piece of paper. The passport has traveled from a medieval letter requesting safe passage for a traveler to a biometric document with a chip storing your fingerprints and retinal data. Over these centuries, it transformed from an instrument of control over peasants into a symbol of citizenship and belonging. From a temporary wartime measure into a permanent global system. The next time you hold your passport in your hands, remember, this is not simply a document. It is a concentration of the history of wars, revolutions, migrations, and state power. A small booklet that decides who you are in the eyes of the world.